Part 1. Initiate. In Chapter 1, Prince Merrick Nahar navigates a deadly, nautilus-shaped ice tomb with a stormhound pup named Aurora, sent by two mysterious girls who instruct him to raise her. The ice seeks to trap and kill them, reacting violently to his magic, but Merrick uses bursts of wind to break free and protect Aurora. They descend into a massive star-filled cavern pursued by hoarfrost and filamentous ice. Merrick relies on the Stormhound and a black bird to guide him, chasing it toward a glowing doorway. Despite the door not being his preferred exit, he follows it, knowing he must follow the grain of the ice's fissures to survive. Using his wind magic to shield himself and propel Aurora through the door, Merrick escapes the tomb. The chapter ends with him leaving the mountain behind, alive but aware of the dangers and mysteries still awaiting him. In Chapter 2, Blood Witch Aeduan confronts the Von Grieg brothers at the abandoned Hastral estate to reclaim the castle for Empress Saphia von Kartora. Using his blood witchery, he freezes their blood, threatening them with death while offering mercy if they submit. One brother, nicknamed Shitpants by Aeduan, attacks, but Aeduan disables him with a precise strike to the hamstring without killing him. The other brother, Red, challenges Aeduan, claiming blood witches cannot control people this way, revealing his own rare blood witch powers. Aeduan confirms Red's magic and asserts his dominance, snapping Red's wrist and rendering him unconscious. Both brothers remain alive, but incapacitated. Aeduan demonstrates the full extent of his abilities while asserting the new political order under Saphia, neutralizing potential resistance without unnecessary bloodshed. The chapter establishes Aeduan's skill, the threat of opposing nobles, and the consolidation of power in the aftermath of Henrik's deposition. In Chapter 3, Vivia, Nahar, Vanessa, and Cam examine a newly appeared magical doorway near Nodin's gift that could lead into the Sightwitch Mountain and potentially to Lovitz. Vivia sees it as an opportunity to infiltrate the capital, disable her father Seraphin without bloodshed, and reclaim her birthright, while Vanessa cautions about the door's dangers, including structural collapse, enemy use, and unpredictable magic. They debate risks, considering stealth and secrecy, and acknowledge the siege chain and magical barriers still threaten New Brevnan's survival. Vivia plans to act discreetly, limiting knowledge of their operation to Cam as guide. The women bind their iron bracelets together, symbolically reinforcing cooperation and control over their magics. The chapter emphasizes the necessity of secrecy, strategic planning, and trust between Vivia and Vanessa, while setting up the imminent infiltration mission into Lovitz. They agree to attempt the plan that very night. In Chapter 4, Merrick awakens in a changed, winter-stricken Poznan after being released from the ice. He and the Stormhound, Aurora, are injured but alive. Merrick tends to Aurora's wounds and notes her resilience as she absorbs wind magic to heal. He decides to lead her safely through the frozen city, avoiding Esme's tower and the Cleave sentries. Along the way, he hears crying and discovers a hidden child among the cleaved. Merrick cautiously approaches, speaking in multiple languages to establish trust, and kneels to interact safely. He observes the child's vulnerability and resemblance to Vivia in age and posture. Using stories from his past, he calms the child while maintaining vigilance over Aurora and the surroundings. After an extended period of storytelling, Merrick announces he will search for food and shelter, giving the child the option to follow. Aurora stays at his side as they move forward through Poznan. In Chapter 5, Vivia, Vanessa, and Cam prepare to enter a magic doorway under the full moon when Nodin's power is strongest. Vivia carries supplies and draws her cutlass while the jungle around them pulses with magical energy. The doorway shimmers blue, unguarded due to Shauna's careful timing. Despite Vanessa's warnings about the dangers and instability of the magic doors, Vivia insists on entering first. The group passes through and emerges into a massive cavern filled with black-veined ice, some glowing blue. The cavern is vast, disorienting, and dangerous, recalling the sentries of Nodin. Vivia leads cautiously, relying on Cam's guidance and Vanessa's vigilance. They encounter a large column of ice blocking the path. Vivia, Cam, and Vanessa struggle to pass, with the ice aggressively trying to trap them. Vanessa's magic severs the ice's hold, and they tumble to safety. They reach a shadowy archway leading to the convent, but the undercity door becomes sealed by the pursuing ice, trapping them in darkness. In Chapter 6, Merrick follows the boy through the frozen, plague-stricken streets of Poznan, keeping pace despite his exhaustion and hunger. Aurora, the Stormhound, accompanies him, alert to danger. They reach the puppeteer's tower, which is partly crumbling but familiar from his previous imprisonment. Inside, Merrick finds the top floor empty, with Esme's desk, books, and the corner where he had been bound. The collar that had suppressed his magic is gone. He and Aurora make a fire, melt snow for water, and prepare a simple meal from frozen supplies. The boy remains outside, but is expected to follow. From the tower, Merrick surveys the surrounding landscape. To the north and west, fires and encampments indicate forces of the Raider King, Red Sails, Baydeeds, and unknown factions. The camps stop a sharp distance from Poznan's northern wall. Merrick resolves to help the boy and eventually head south toward New Brevna, avoiding confrontation with the Raider King and the Cleaved. In Chapter 7, Aeduan awakens near the Earthwell, recalling a traumatic dream of his mother urging him to run from flames. He surveys the well, noting the warmth and movement of the water, which had been healed by Isolde and Sophia. Instinctively, he reaches into the well with his blood witchery, but finds no soul of Nadja present. Stripping off his clothes, he dives into the waters, feeling the healing embrace and memories from Nadja. Emerging, he finds his 6 old wounds reopened but gradually staunching as the echoes of his mother's voice fade. While cleaning himself, he discovers 2 golden strands, remnants of hellbard nooses tied to the missing hellbards, Xander and Lev. Using his heightened blood witch senses, he tracks the coastal storm and soil-scented bloods, recognizing traces of fatherly grief and cold iron. With Surefoot settled, he promises her safety and departs, following the trails of the missing hellbards with precision, ready to investigate their disappearance. In Chapter 8, Vivia, Cam, and Vanessa take refuge in a dark, tomb-like room within the mountain, lit only by a single torch. Cam identifies the space as the past, recalling an altar that once held a deadly blade and mirror, now missing. As tension rises, especially between Vivia and Vanessa, who refuses to move forward without proof of safety, Cam reminds them the only path forward leads past sleeping Sightwitch ice. When a quake hits, the room shifts and glowing ice begins to invade. Cam finds a newly opened fissure and disappears into it. Vivia and Vanessa chase after him, narrowly escaping the encroaching ice and disembodied voices. The tunnel leads them to a hidden chamber, where they overhear Kartoran hellbards, Lev and Xander, arguing. Vanessa recognizes them as allies from Saldonica. After a cautious reunion, the hellbards reveal they were trying to reach New Brevna with letters from Sophia von Hastral, requesting Vivia and Vanessa's urgent aid in Poznan. In Chapter 9, Merrick finishes a simple stew with Aurora and is joined by a young boy named Ravan, who is cautious but curious about the Stormhound. Merrick reassures him, explains that both he and Aurora were Kiristiri, and encourages him to approach. Ravan reveals he is from Tirla and mentions his mother, prompting Merrick to confirm Ravan's previous transformation while keeping Aurora's nature vague. They share the warm meal, and Merrick prepares sleeping arrangements for them. Outside, Aurora is seen moving toward raider encampments, prompting Merrick to act. He takes flight, using his winds to protect her from gunfire. Merrick intercepts 3 armed youths, discovering they are purists, not raiders. Recognizing their hunger, he negotiates with them, demanding they put down their weapons before he can provide food. The apparent leader, a girl named Sky, asserts control, ordering her companion Olga to sheathe her knife, allowing Merrick to guide them safely for provisions. In Chapter 10, Vivia reads a letter from Empress Sophia of Kartora, offering assistance to reclaim her throne from her father, in exchange for sending her forces east to aid Kartora. The letter details routes via sea and river to Poznan and suggests using Dalmati cannons against the Raider King. Sophia has already secured an agreement with General Fashayid to return Vanessa's throne without battle. Overwhelmed, Vivia sinks to her knees, supported by Vanessa and Cam. Vivia retrieves a map from the Hellbard Lev, giving it to Cam to navigate the mountains safely. Cam notes that the mountain has changed since his previous visit, with new magic doorways appearing on the map labeled Windswept Plains and Contested Lands, which had not existed before. Vivia and Cam conclude that someone is actively creating new portals, possibly a powerful witch. They plan to move quickly down the stairs to avoid lingering and potential danger. In Chapter 11, Aeduan tracks the scents of the Hellbards through the Orans, following trails westward and then eastward. Initially, the scents fade, indicating their origin, and he returns to the Earth Well to resume the hunt. Following stronger blood scents east, he reaches a snow-covered clearing with a granite slab, which is a sealed magic doorway into the mountain, the one used weeks ago by Isolde, Sophia, and the Hellbards to reach Kartora. No magic radiates from it, indicating the portal has closed behind them. Though his orders are to continue westward to handle rebellious Doms, Aeduan prioritizes discovering the Hellbard's path and whereabouts. While searching, he catches a faint, fleeting blood scent of Leopold von Kartora, the Rook King and Paladin of Ether who cursed Aeduan long ago. With this knowledge, Aeduan decides he must deliver the news in person. He returns to his horse, Surefoot, preparing to travel that night. In Chapter 12, Vivia, Cam, Vanessa, and the freed Hellbards ascend the mountain to escape the ice-filled tunnels and reach the Sight Witch Sister Convent. The Hellbards lead the way, carrying letters from Sophia von Kartora, although Vivia and Cam sense something off about the source. The ascent is exhausting, with hundreds of stairs, foxfire-lit tunnels, and limited water. Along the way, the group confirms the Hellbards regained magic. Xander can control plants, and Lev can heal sporadically. They reach a room labeled the Workshop, preserved by a spell from Eurydice, with intact shelves, instruments, and foxfire lighting. Ahead lies a massive locked wooden door requiring a Sight Witch key. Xander attempts to open it with his plant witchery, splitting the wood, but collapses from exertion. Before aid can be given, the black-veined hungry ice floods the room, engulfing Xander, Lev, and Vivia. Two mysterious girls appear, noting that only with 9 can one think beyond, as the ice claims the group. In Chapter 13, Isolde Midenzi struggles to heal a dying man afflicted by slow cleaving, a new and agonizing form of magic that resists her abilities. Despite her skill as a weaver witch, the man's threads, including those linking him to his family and work, cannot be restored, highlighting that the nature of cleaving has changed after Corlin's destruction. Exhausted, Isolde is persuaded by Safi to leave, entrusting the man's care to his wife and promising to return. Safi and Isolde prepare for their journey to the Solfatara to heal the final well, which is necessary to restore magic in the Witchlands and stop the cleaving. They organize their supplies meticulously before setting out on their horses, Dandelion and Cloud, taking a southern route to avoid the lodge and crowds of Hellbards. Upon nearing the lodge, they encounter Caden Fitzgrieg, who insists Safi travel with a Hellbard escort, but Isolde departs independently, spurring Cloud forward without looking back. In Chapter 14, Sophia von Hastral reviews and organizes strategic maps of Poznan and the Solfatara in her repurposed dining hall, monitoring troop movements and supply lines while negotiating the Empire's logistics. She notes the weakening forces caused by the Hellbards leaving and the unreliability of the Antiguan supply chain, prompting her and Isolde to prepare for a journey to Praga before the Carowan monks arrive. Safi considers the war efforts and the Raider King, recognizing that bloodshed is inevitable until the final well is healed. After securing maps and rations, she proceeds to Henrik von Kartora's quarters, where he remains imprisoned under watch of 4 Hellbards. Safi questions Henrik about a controversial grain and shipbuilding agreement. Learning his rationale involved diplomacy to prevent invasion. She warns him of her secret journey to the well, receives advice on the Raider King's power, and leaves with the locks magically secured behind her, ensuring the former emperor remains confined. In Chapter 15, Sophia von Hastral pursues Caden, who has ventured alone into the hazardous acid-filled Solfatara despite her orders. She reaches the ruined Eurydice flying machine and confronts him, discovering he has suffered injuries from the corrosive fog, but remains determined to search for missing Hellbards, Lev and Xander. Safi and Caden work together to ignite the remains of the flying machine, creating a healing, symbolic fire while discussing his mission. She confronts him about his motives, noting that he stays not for her protection, but because he has no one else. Safi convinces him that finding Lev and Xander is necessary for his own wholeness and arranges a plan using threadstones, crafted by Isolde and her apprentice Alma, to locate his thread family. Caden agrees to the mission, committing to travel east with the Nomatsi to search for Lev and Xander, promising to return to Safi once it is complete. In Chapter 16, Isolde and Caden travel through thick snow toward the Nomatsi encampment, navigating a dangerous and ever-changing trail. Isolde is nervous about the tribe's reception and about encountering Alma, whom she had previously caused to die and revive. Caden struggles with the unfamiliar terrain and his erratic new magic, but follows Isolde closely. Upon reaching the encampment, they are welcomed by Alma and Gretchen, who cautiously accept Caden as a guard due to Sophia von Hastrel's influence and provisions. Isolde observes the tribe's reactions to Caden, noting his thread's calm under scrutiny and his adaptability. Together, they discuss travel routes south via the River Tini and the timing of winter to avoid hostile cities. Alma provides additional supplies, including a Nomatsi pack and shield to aid Isolde's mission. Isolde confirms that she will heal the final well to protect her mother, Caden, and others, then sets off into the night, leaving the encampment behind. In Chapter 17, Safi struggles with exhaustion and the relentless pressure of the Kar Awen souls trapped within her, which prevent her from sleeping. While attempting to reach her bedroom, Monk Evrain intercepts her with a healer's kit from Isolde and offers assistance. Safi initially resists, hiding the truth of her pain, but eventually allows Evrain into her quarters. Evrain explains she cannot remove the trapped souls but can ease Safi's head and neck pain and send a sleeping wave through her body. Safi relents, and Evrain's magic calms her, relieving some pressure and letting her rest. Safi reveals to Evrain that Merrick is alive, describing the vision she saw inside a mountain filled with ice, winds, and shadow. Evrain, overjoyed and thoughtful, promises to alert her contacts to search for him while Safi has already activated her spy network. Finally, Evrain's gentle healing allows Safi to sleep, providing her the peace she has lacked. In Chapter 18, Isolde travels alone along the Nomatsi Trail to the ancient tower carrying a heavy pack of supplies. She senses a shift in the tower's aura and sets the pack down before opening Eurydice's diary to enter the dreaming. There she encounters Leopold von Kartora in his paladin form, now wearing the Rook King's crown. Leopold confronts Isolde, claiming she and Safi cannot survive traveling east alone to heal the final well and warning of the Raider King's power. He asserts that he has manipulated events from behind the scenes, including providing armies and orchestrating previous outcomes, and insists they cannot leave without an army. As Isolde debates his words, Leopold ignites the supplies she brought, including firepots. Explosions engulf the tower, throwing Isolde into snow and stone. Aeduin appears and rescues her, carrying her out into the cold. Once safe, Isolde regains her senses and immediately demands Aeduin locate Leopold before he can escape. In Chapter 19, Aeduin immediately pursues Leopold after the prince caused the tower explosion. Tracking both Leopold's and the Rook King's blood sense, Aeduin pushes his magic and body to the limit despite old wounds flaring and the Solfatara's toxic fog approaching. He ultimately cannot reach Leopold, who escapes into the mist, evading capture. Meanwhile, the explosion destroyed all of Isolde's and Safi's supplies, leaving only the Nomatsi pack from Alma partially intact. Eurydice's diary is gone, replaced by a new book, A History of Erythrania's Rise, containing Leopold's handwritten notes and a detailed fold-out map of Poznan, highlighting the Raider King's defensive positions and suggesting strategies for infiltration and distraction. Isolde studies the book, formulating a new plan to navigate the city and coordinate the Kartoran and Karawan forces. Despite the loss of their supplies, she secures the book and her pack, leaving the tower with determination to continue their mission and confront the challenges ahead. In Chapter 20, Isolde reaches the secret backup clearing by the stream, a pre-arranged meeting spot for Safi in case of trouble, carrying the Nomatsi pack. She encounters Aeduin, who has tracked her and expresses concern over Leopold's attempt to harm her. Isolde confirms she still intends to leave for Poznan despite the danger. They discuss Aeduin's fear of facing his father, Corland, and Isolde reassures him that she does not want him to bear that burden alone. Aeduin agrees to stay with her, offering his blood and threads in full commitment. Isolde responds by guiding him, and the two share a physical and magical connection, culminating in an intimate, binding kiss that strengthens their bond. The chapter ends with them fully aligned in purpose, emotionally and magically united, as they prepare to continue their journey together toward Poznan, setting the stage for the challenges ahead. In Chapter 21, Caden stands in the cleared Nomatsi camp, reflecting on his weaknesses and the tribe's unease with his presence. Alma and Gretcha prepare 3 threadstones, 1 for Caden and 2 for his friends Lev and Xander. Caden selects the stones, an emerald, an opal, and a ruby, guided by instinct and the stone's magical resonance. Alma and Gretcha thread the stones with colored strands representing family, loyalty, and determination. Once bound, the stones allow Caden to locate his thread family, although he feels no immediate difference. Alma instructs him to act quickly as they sense danger and urgency. Gretcha insists the tribe cannot wait, but Alma decides to accompany Caden, ensuring he is not alone. Caden prepares to depart, acknowledging the mission and the responsibility to deliver Isolde safely to Saldonica. The chapter closes with Safi's letters to her uncle and Cullen, explaining her and Isolde's mission to heal the final well, the appearance of new magical doorways, and the ongoing threats to the Witchlands. In Chapter 22, Isolde, Safi, and Edwin travel east for 3 days with only 3 Nomatsi packs after their supplies were destroyed, relying on Edwin's magic to find food. On the 5th day, they encounter smoke and spot a fire on the road, realizing they must avoid it. Edwin leads them off the highway into tall grass, where they are ambushed by raiders. Edwin freezes some attackers with his magic, while Safi and Isolde draw weapons and engage the raiders. The sisters coordinate seamlessly, using their threads and martial skill to cut down enemies efficiently. Safi's sword responds to her magic, allowing her to decapitate and disable multiple raiders. Edwin joins, strengthening their defense. During the fight, Safi notices one raider's black blood, revealing he is cleaving, while another raider uses a fire-witched pistol. Safi disarms and incapacitates the gun-wielding woman, and Isolde orders the raider to the ground, successfully repelling the ambush. In Chapter 23, Isolde, Safi, and Edwin assess the aftermath of their battle with the raiders. They discover all the attackers were cleaving, their blood dark and threads corrupted. The lone surviving raider reveals they were sent by the Raider King to kill anyone infected with the plague, confirming the scope of the threat. Isolde and Safi decide to leave the raiders behind, trusting Edwin to control the remaining threats. With the road unsafe, the trio travels off the highway, slowing their pace due to tall grass, snow, and Safi's injury. Night approaches as they spot a Nomatsi shrine, a safe spot to camp. Isolde, Safi, and Edwin set up the tent, tend to the horses, and address Safi's bloodied arm. Using Water Witch, Fire Witch, and Earth Witch salves, Isolde cleans and heals Safi's wound. After eating, Safi rests on a sleeping pad while Isolde ensures her comfort, letting her drift into sleep as they prepare for the continued journey toward Poznan. In Chapter 24, Edwin struggles with guilt and fear after failing to sense the raiders, nearly endangering Isolde and Safi. His old chest wounds flare, intensifying the pain and his self-recrimination. Despite the cold and the snow, he patrols around the shrine, scanning for threats, haunted by the memory of Atosha, an exalted one whose presence stirs old fear. Eventually, Isolde wakes and confronts him, acknowledging their shared responsibility for nearly missing the raiders. They discuss Edwin's lifelong obedience to masters and the burdens it entails. Isolde vows that once their mission is complete, Edwin will serve only himself, and they will find what he desires together. Edwin affirms his trust in her and agrees to her vow, sharing a brief, intimate moment before resuming his watch. Exhausted, he allows Isolde to rest, maintaining vigilance while reinforcing the bond between them as they prepare to continue their journey toward Poznan. In Chapter 25, Safi confronts Edwin about the severity of her injury, revealing that her arm muscle is badly torn, possibly with bone damage, and beginning to develop a fever. She demands that if she cannot walk to the well, Edwin will take control of her blood to carry her safely, overriding normal Blood Witch limits, and he reluctantly agrees. Safi also entrusts him with the Truth Lens, a magical necklace intended for a contact in New Brevna, instructing him to deliver it if she does not survive the journey. They establish that Isolde must remain unaware of Safi's condition to prevent disruption of their mission to heal the final well. After securing this agreement, Safi rests while Edwin remains vigilant. That night, he experiences nightmares, reflecting the Kar Awen ghosts inside Safi, visions of Isolde under attack, and confrontations with the Exalted Ones, reinforcing his sense of duty and the looming dangers of their quest. In Chapter 26, Isolde, Safi, and Edwin continue riding through the windswept plains, pushing their exhausted horses to reach safety before the approaching storm. Safi's fire-wounded arm burns painfully, and she hides the severity of her injury from Isolde, relying on Edwin's magic and a pain stone to partially suppress the pain. As they near the forest, Isolde detects incoming threats from above, 2 wind witches, whose threads are fully cleaving, indicating they are extremely dangerous. Isolde attempts to control them but fails, forcing her to engage them directly. She kills one, while Edwin intervenes to remove the body and warns that more enemies, including raiders and witches, are approaching in large numbers. Recognizing they cannot fight all of them, Isolde commands Edwin to protect Safi while she buys time. Despite his reluctance, Edwin obeys his vow to her, and Isolde reaffirms their bond with a kiss before confronting the overwhelming forces ahead. In Chapter 27, Safi struggles with the fire-wounded arm that continues to burn despite the painstone's effects, leaving her in extreme pain as she rides through the forest on Dandelion. Disoriented by the gray winter light and uneven terrain, she cannot gauge direction or move safely. Suddenly, she detects 4 approaching soldiers and, recognizing she cannot fight them alone, surrenders, calling for them to take her to the Raider King. Edwin, realizing he has failed to protect her, pushes Surefoot to extreme speed, using his magic to follow her trail. Exhausted and pained by the resurgence of his old chest wounds, he senses only fragments of Safi's blood but struggles to locate her physically. He avoids using the truth lens, preferring to track her via her blood scent and hoofprints. Eventually, he reaches a clearing with the horses Cloud and Dandelion, but no sign of Safi. Determined, Edwin presses onward alone, resolved to find the Lightbringer and continue the mission. In Chapter 28, Safi is captured by Baydeed raiders and bound to their horse, leaving Dandelion and Cloud behind. Her fire-wounded arm burns intensely from the magical shot, leaving her weak, feverish, and in danger of collapse. Despite the pain, she tries to communicate with her captors, requesting her healing kit and painstones, but they ignore her. As the raiders ride west toward the Raider King, Safi struggles to stay conscious, relying on the Kar Awen souls within her to keep moving. The horse gallops through forested terrain, the environment becoming increasingly disorienting. Eventually, they arrive at a settlement of mixed faction tents and hovels, where Safi is dragged off the horse, nearly collapsing from exhaustion and cold. As she prepares to succumb to her injuries, she sees a man approaching through the crowd, the Raider King. He identifies her as Domna and reassures her that a healer is coming, and Merrick lifts her into his arms, bringing her into unconsciousness. In Chapter 29, Edwin navigates an unnatural forest, sensing something near but finding no humans, only faint animal and environmental scents. He moves cautiously, knives and sword ready, haunted by memories of ghostly threads and the crypts of the Sightwitch sisters. Suddenly, he detects the Silver Tailor, realizing Isolde and Safi are nearby. Ignoring fear and fatigue, he runs through the forest in pursuit, driven by his earlier failures. The terrain gradually changes. Trees give way to boulders and gravel reminiscent of the Contested Lands, a cursed region. Edwin follows the tailor to a circular hole carved into the earth with a ramp descending below. At the bottom, a faint blue glow indicates a magical doorway into the mountain. Despite the strain on his old wounds, he cautiously channels his magic toward the portal, then leaps down the ramp. The portal's magic stretches and compresses him, and he emerges inside a mountain of starlight, the same one Naji had once known. In Chapter 30, Isolde is escorted by raiders toward Poznan under a heretic's collar that suppresses her cleaving magic, leaving her only able to see threads. She reflects on her plan to use the situation to get close to the Raider King, recognizing that separating the enemies allowed Edwin and Safi to escape. Isolde observes the vast scale of the Raider King's forces, noting the black flag with a red crescent moon and the severed threads littering the city. As they cross a bridge into Poznan, she realizes her threadstone and the tailor are missing, but she maintains focus with stasis, suppressing fear and emotion. The raiders guide her to a small dome Nomatsi tent, where she encounters the threads inside, green, cobalt, and navy, indicating determination, preparedness, and grief. Finally, she sees Ragnar Amalej, a slender figure resembling a future Edwin, who bows to her respectfully and commands food to be brought, signaling both recognition and controlled hospitality. In Chapter 31, Safi awakens in an unfamiliar forested shelter, tended by the healer Rhinus and watched over by Merrick. She is in severe pain from her Fire Witch pistol wound, but learns that Isolde and Edwin are being searched for. The Kar Awen souls inside her urge her to worry about the well, but she focuses on survival and healing. Merrick reflects on his past failures and the inflexibility that led to harm, acknowledging the need to adapt to the challenges posed by the Raider King. His makeshift base, Last Holdout, is a forest settlement built from woven branches, canvas, and furs, providing safety for his followers. Advisors Bertie, Olga, Sky, and Lulu update him on the status of the horses and the forest area where Isolde and Edwin might be. Merrick organizes a patrol to search the dangerous eastern forest for the Blood Witch and the Truth Witch, emphasizing loyalty and careful tracking while preparing to enter the city himself. In Chapter 32, Isolde encounters a powerful Fire Witch paladin, Admiral Kahina of the Red Sails, who delivers stew and subtly demonstrates her authority, confirming her identity and past dealings with Safi. Isolde realizes she could have killed the Raider King, Ragnar, but hesitates and instead informs him that the supposed plague is actually cleaving. Ragnar explains the city has been poisoned since the Wells died and promises to answer her questions later, asserting they are tools, not enemies. Isolde studies the city, noting the extent of his forces and the threads within the buildings, and reviews Leopold's strategy book to compare his plans to reality. Meanwhile, Safi awakens under Merrick's care in a wintry, woven shelter. She is weak from her fire-witched wound, but learns that Merrick's forces are still searching for Isolde and Edwin. A bait-eyed healer has repaired her arm, leaving scars. Merrick explains how he reached this hidden base and reassures Safi of her safety. In Chapter 33, Edwin emerges inside the mountain, but finds the magical portal behind him closed, trapping him. Frustrated and enraged, he lashes out with his blood witchery to locate Leopold, realizing that Isolde and Safi were never present. He retrieves the truth lens, confirming he is in the mountain of the goddess Sermaya, though it looks unlike descriptions from Isolde or Nadja. The tunnel is eerie, lined with ice-filled veins that respond to his 6 old wounds, and thousands of living people seem present within the stone. As he presses forward, the ice and shadows create disorienting obstacles, with bodies emerging from the ice shouting cryptic warnings. Edwin struggles with pain and magic interference, sliding and falling on ice, chased by spectral women. Eventually he reaches a cavern within the mountain, where storm, stone, and lightning dominate, and the ice shifts beneath him. He steps off an unstable ledge, falling, while visions of his mother urge him to flee, though he remains immobilized by his wounds and the overwhelming surroundings. In Chapter 34, Vivia awakens trapped in ice inside the mountain, disoriented and in extreme cold. She is freed by Xander, Lev, and the other Hellbards, but discovers that Empress Vanessa is injured and Cam is missing. Ice continues to threaten them, forcing Vivia to channel her magic through the water witch pumps to create a torrent of water that blocks the ice, though it nearly overwhelms her. Xander carries Vivia through the hazardous workshop while Lev transports Vanessa. They traverse tunnels filled with foxfire, moving toward a glowing, frizzing archway. The group emerges into the contested lands hundreds of miles from their intended destination. Vivia realizes the significance of Merrick, her thread brother and king, as a critical part of the puzzle. She connects the Hellbard's survival to his magical bond, and considers how to free him from the puppeteer's loom. Exhausted but focused, she resolves to understand and potentially release Merrick, setting the stage for their next actions. In Chapter 35, Isolde studies the Raider King's operation while in captivity, using Leopold's notes, her quill, and the quiet of Ragnar's tent to absorb information. She recognizes that the scale of Ragnar Amalea's power surpasses any intelligence she previously accessed. He commands Red Sails, Badids, Purists, Nomazis, and smaller raider and criminal factions across the continent. He has allies in Marstock and the Dalmati Empire and has established strategic footholds, though there are setbacks in Sermayans, New Brevina, and Kartora. Isolde realizes the Raider King plans to cleave all newly healed wells, including earth, water, ether, fire, and void. Observing his meticulous strategy, she acknowledges his relentless resilience, having continued his plans despite losing Wells and his son. Isolde consumes her meal while maintaining stasis to avoid detection, then returns to analyze his maps and sketches, understanding the enormity of the challenge and preparing to target the heart of his operations, the king himself, as her next step. In Chapter 36, Merrick continues his nightly missions to recover Wakers, the cleaved who awaken at night, from the Raider King's control, maintaining secrecy to avoid alerting Ragnar. Accompanied by Skye, Merrick navigates the wet, ice-laden tunnels beneath the city, moving cautiously with borrowed Badid gear. They traverse flooded passages, fox-firelit corridors, and hidden exits, reaching an abandoned building near Esme's tower, using its concealed structure to access the city undetected. Merrick monitors patrols and rooftops, coordinating silently with Skye to avoid detection. The city appears unusually empty, with few guards near the well, making him suspicious of a potential trap. While advancing, a rooftop collapses beneath him, and he falls into a room injured and bleeding. Inside, Merrick encounters a woman with pale hair, sharp features, and formidable ice magic, Styx, who blocks his path. The ice rapidly encases him, preventing his escape, and his wind magic fails to break him free, leaving him trapped and vulnerable. In Chapter 37, Safi defies orders to remain in bed and arms herself with her sword before leaving her hut in last holdout. She surveys the settlement, noting the tree branch canopy and forested walls, and senses the Kar Awen souls urging her toward the well. Aware that Isolde is not with her, Safi begins searching the empty passages between huts for signs of life. She discovers a stone column marked with an owl, a secret waypoint like others she and Isolde had found before. Hearing voices, Safi spots 4 figures near a hut and recognizes Cloud, the horse, but finds its rider missing. The hooded figures inform her the other horses and riders have disappeared into the forest. Safi prepares to pursue them when a whine signals a large winged creature's approach. Cloud bolts, scattering her blanket, and the hooded figures react, shouting warnings about Merrick being in danger. Safi gives chase, determined to follow the fleeing horse and uncover what has happened. In Chapter 38, Isolde waits outside the tent, observing the eastern sky and distant threads. The Admiral, Kahina, warns her to stay inside due to city dangers. Isolde senses a potential offer from the Raider King, noting the encampments are restless. A Beatid raider named Sky enters, sent by Merrick to find Isolde and guide her safely. Isolde confirms Safi is safe, though Edwin's status is unknown. She entrusts Sky with a book containing instructions and maps to lead Safi to the well while avoiding raiders. Meanwhile, Edwin is being moved, injured and in pain, by Leopold von Kartora. Leopold reveals he has brought Edwin to the Ether Well, ensuring the Carawan monks nearby will respond to his injuries. He explains he is not Edwin's enemy, emphasizing that the Dark Giver, Safi, and the Lightbringer, Isolde, need assistance to reach the final well. Leopold provides Edwin with guidance on locating Safi once healed, stressing caution and coordination with the Carawans. In Chapter 39, Sky struggles to navigate the Raider King's city, blocked by raiders and obstacles. Despite blending in with her Beatid attire, she encounters organized defenses, Beatids bearing firepots, purists setting traps, red sails placing stakes, and masked nomatsis creating fog. Sky observes carts transporting hundreds of barrels of sea fire into the Old City, intended to incinerate Kartoran forces. Using her witchery linked to the ether, she masks herself as one of the Beatids and joins them, gaining their trust. She follows them through the city toward the tower and the tunnels, studying the traps and barrel placements. Sky realizes the city is heavily fortified and that the cleaved are lined up in rows, with sea fire set every 30 to 40 steps, making the area deadly. Her goal is to reach the tunnels, assist in navigating the traps, and relay critical information back to last holdout, all while avoiding detection and maintaining her disguise. In Chapter 40, Admiral Kahina, a paladin of fire and leader of the Red Sails, arrives to escort Isolde through Poznan. Kahina's threads display weariness and concern, hinting at imminent danger. They traverse the icy, snow-covered city toward the ramparts and the tower, avoiding raiders while revealing the weight of history Kahina has witnessed, including the chaos caused by the Exalted Ones and the Void Paladin Portia. As they move, Isolde observes the city's textures and fortifications, realizing the strategic and historical significance of her path. Ahead, Ragnar the Raider King waits, appearing as a commanding general with a red moon sigil symbolizing his bond to the Moon Mother. Isolde confronts him about the Origin Well, and Ragnar explains that he brought her specifically to see it, delaying for her to study his desk and its intelligence. Isolde notes his unmatched clarity and threads, and agrees to walk with him, preparing for what lies ahead. In Chapter 41, Safi exits last holdout and witnesses chaos along the river as Merrick falls from a great height, saved only by the stormhound Aurora. Ice, controlled by a water witch, spreads across the river, creating deadly hazards. The forest magically intervenes, attacking and swallowing the water witch, forcing Safi and companions back into the trees. Once the storm subsides, only the stormhound remains. Merrick is missing. Meanwhile, Styx is trapped in the eastern Poznan forest, assaulted by jagged branches and rocks, but eventually released. She encounters a young Nomatsi girl, Owl, formerly Saria Deirdre, who explains she attacked to protect the important figure Merrick was chasing. Owl clarifies she is not aligned with the Rook King, but acts to safeguard the Witchlands. Using her power, she neutralizes Styx's water magic and reveals a newly created portal into Surmaya's ice, instructing that they must first save the innocents of the forest from imminent burning, echoing events from 1,000 years prior. In Chapter 42, Vivia, Lev, Xander, and the still unconscious Empress Vanessa are stranded hundreds of leagues from home, following their escape from the mountain workshop. Vivia clings to two blessings, her healer kit, allowing them to tend Xander's and Vanessa's injuries, and the fact that Vanessa is alive despite overexerting her magic. They camp briefly while Lev fetches water and Xander forages, maintaining vigilance over the Empress. Vivia reflects on the surge of magical power she and Vanessa experienced in Nodin's gift and the challenges of controlling it. Recognizing the Amonra River's waters as a vital tool, she prepares to navigate them despite the risks. Using Xander's hastily constructed raft, dubbed the Commander, Vivia, Lev, and the Empress embark downstream. Vivia manages the steering, resisting the river's magical pull to maintain control, while Xander rests beside Vanessa. The group begins their journey into the river's deeper currents, navigating carefully past natural and magical obstacles. In Chapter 43, Isolde is led by Ragnar through Poznan, encountering the Cleaved, hundreds of stilled, trapped people whose threads were severed, victims of Esme's and the Raider King's manipulations. Witnessing their suffering, Isolde's resolve hardens to heal the wells and free the Cleaved. Ragnar deliberately avoids the most direct path to the Origin Well, steering her through smaller alleys and overgrown courtyards, past frozen and snow-covered Cleaved, while explaining his intentions. At the hilltop, the Origin Well appears, dark and frozen except for a central opening. Ragnar explains that the wells were never meant to belong to humans. Surmaya's magic has been drained over millennia, and the Cleaved are a consequence. He urges Isolde to consider cleaving strategically, not merely healing, to stabilize the Witchlands and prevent repeated destruction. He challenges her, asking why previous healing attempts worsened cleaving, emphasizing the stakes. Her choices will determine both the survival of the wells and the fate of the people and empires around them. In Chapter 44, Safi struggles to keep pace with Merrick, who is in the fast-moving icy river, while Aurora dives repeatedly into the water to protect him. The ice is unstable, and the Stormhound grows weaker with each attempt. Safi halts, realizing she needs a plan, especially with Isolde missing. She directs the two young advisors and Lud, the Herd Witch, to act. One keeps watch on the city, another manages Aurora, and Loed uses his Herd Witch magic to locate Merrick in the river. As Lud channels his power, the landscape brightens unnaturally, revealing the threat. Seafire comets aimed at Last Holdout. Safi orders the advisors to retreat to protect the settlement, assuring them Merrick will survive. She stays behind to guide Lud, trusting him to find Merrick beneath the water, while the Stormhound escapes into the sky, leaving Safi alone to manage the river, the ice, and the imminent Seafire threat. In Chapter 45, Ragnar confronts Isolde, demanding to know why cleaving has worsened with each well she has healed. Isolde struggles to respond, her logic and Threadwitch training failing under the weight of his scrutiny. Ragnar recounts the history of the Paladins, the Exalted Ones, the Rook King's betrayal, and the 1,000-year consequences of Surmaya's power being drained. He explains that the cleaved and worsening cleaving result from these historical manipulations and that the wells were never meant for mortals. Despite her fear and physical weakness, Isolde resolves to act, understanding that she must heal the wells while navigating the political and magical consequences. Ragnar presents a shattered blade infused with severed threads, revealing it as the source of her power as a Kar Awin. Isolde attempts to strike him but is too slow. The broken blade pierces her abdomen. Ragnar withdraws it, assuring her death will not be wasted. In Chapter 46, Safi experiences the full impact of Isolde's death, feeling the severing of threads that bind her and the Kar Awin, which nearly overwhelms her. The Kar Awin souls inside Safi rally, forcing her to rise and regain control. She senses the presence and grief of her extended thread family, Alma, Gretcha, Evrain, Edwin, and Leopold, uniting their collective magic to guide her. Safi leaps across the river to Last Holdout, navigating arrows and seafire while her sword channels partial thread magic. Meanwhile, Merrick, still tethered to life by Cullen's threads, struggles in Nodin's river. He dies and revives multiple times as hagfishes attempt to drag him into the abyss. Eventually, the current releases him, and he reaches solid ice. Evrain arrives, recognizing him and providing warmth and reassurance. Safi's resurgence and Merrick's rescue set the stage for their continued mission to confront the Raider King and protect the Witchlands. In Chapter 47, Isolt's body lies dying in the snow while her spirit exists within the dreaming. She watches as Ragnar, wielding the shattered blade that killed her, confronts Leopold, the Rook King, near the airwell. Ragnar, consumed by rage and righteousness, accuses Leopold of betraying the Six Paladins and destroying their order 1,000 years ago. Leopold denies it, offering his own life to save Isolt's, but their battle intensifies as Ragnar's broken sword, infused with severed threads, seeks to end Leopold permanently. Observing from the dreaming, Isolt realizes the broken blade is the weapon that once destroyed the Exalted Ones, while the broken-looking glass Ragnar carries holds power that builds rather than destroys. When she touches it, the threads from the glass connect to her soul, merging her spirit with its magic. Rebound to Safi through their shared Kar-Awen bond, Isolt regains strength and silently calls for her thread sister to find her. In Chapter 48, Styx fully embraces her paladin power to combat the Seafire-consuming Last Holdout, working with Owl to manipulate water, soil, and stone into barriers that slow the flames. Despite the hazards, they guide civilians, including purists, Baidids, and beggars, towards safety through a secret doorway leading to the Undercity, completing a mission left unfinished 1,000 years ago by Bailey, Bastion, and Saria. Lovitz, the Paladin of Fire, continues his assault using his ring bond to inflict pain on Bailey, but she keeps moving, directing the people and flooding the Undercity with water to protect the cisterns from his flames. Styx and Owl reinforce their defenses, building a dome overhead to shield the escapees from fire and soldiers. A young girl resists entering the mountain, but is persuaded by Styx and Owl. Elias, the Rook King, passes through first, allowing Bastion to carry Bailey to safety with the Paladin blade. Styx prepares to follow into the mountain, aware of the remaining danger posed by Owl. In Chapter 49, Safi races through Poznan with unmatched speed and precision, embodying the Witch, Empress, Sun, and Birth, as she fights past raiders and dodges attacks from a Storm Witch. Her Hellbards rally to her call, forming a protective square as they push through the city, following moving ice that guides her toward the Origin Well. Despite obstacles, including firepots, lightning, and raiders, Safi drives onward, intent on reaching Isolt. Meanwhile, Merrick awakens in a tent after being rescued from the river by Evrain's magic. Though broken and largely cleaved, his body begins to recover, guided by her power. He learns the forest and Last Holdout are engulfed in seafire and under attack. Realizing the urgency, Merrick immediately leaves the tent to confront the battle, determined to rescue any survivors, protect his people, and rejoin Evrain later. His focus is on action and survival, not reflection, as the conflict rages across Poznan. In Chapter 50, Styx channels immense magic to create ice bridges across a cavern in Paladin's Hall, allowing the people of Last Holdout to cross safely. She and Owl carefully manipulate ice, stone, and water to stabilize the platform, while hundreds of people follow. Styx reinforces the bridge with the city's water, forming a secure path to the doorway into Lovett's Undercity. Owl guides new arrivals, including Carowan monks, into the mountain. Meanwhile, Bailey confronts Elias, the Rook King, but he kills Bastion and encases her in granite, seemingly ending her life. Styx initially believes Owl has betrayed her, as the monks are revealed to be Elias's soldiers. However, Owl explains that she acted to protect Styx, and that the soldiers' presence is part of a larger plan. Recognizing the urgency, Styx prepares to dismantle her first bridge and focus on getting the people safely into the Undercity of Nubrevna, as both she and Owl coordinate the rescue and defense against Elias's forces. In Chapter 51, Aeduin reaches Safi, the Truth Witch, who is gravely injured but still alive, likely protected by the Kar-Awen souls or other magic. Using his Blood Witch powers, he binds himself to Safi, restoring her strength and coordinating their movements. Carowan monks, summoned through opals, join them, forming a synchronized fighting force. Together, Aeduin and Safi move toward the airwell, parrying attacks and cutting through raiders, purists, witches, and soldiers loyal to Aeduin's father. Safi regains her sword, and her power flows with Aeduin's, their hearts and magic acting as one. The monks fight in unison with them, amplifying their force. Their combined assault decimates enemy forces, with many fleeing and others killed. Through this coordinated effort, Edwin ensures Safi's survival and clears a path toward Isolde, maintaining the momentum of the mission to save her. The chapter emphasizes their bond, combined Blood Witch and Kar Awen magic, and the lethal precision of their synchronized attack. In Chapter 52, Isolde senses Safi's life tethered by Edwin's threads, which keep her alive as Safi regains strength. Isolde, still in the dreaming, prepares to return to her body and move toward the Origin Well, knowing the Kar Awen can restore its magic. Leopold strikes Ragnar, wounding him, and the Raider King commands Ignite, triggering firepots across Poznan. Isolde's soul re-enters her body amidst the spreading sea fire. Safi and Edwin struggle through the city, navigating deadly flames and chaos, moving toward the well. Edwin guides Safi, controlling her movement to maintain focus and momentum. They encounter Skye, a girl from Last Holdout, who offers a route to the well and warns of more raiders. Edwin instructs both Safi and Skye to move. The trio navigates alleys, dodging the sea fire and cleaved, as Carwin monks maintain the line. Safi fully trusts Edwin, preparing herself for the great danger and pain ahead. In Chapter 53, Isolde, still weakened from her injuries, is supported by Leopold as he carries her toward the Origin Well. The sea fire rages across Poznan, threatening all around them. Isolde's bond with Safi and the threads from the broken blade and glass help her regain enough strength to crawl and move toward the well. Leopold lifts and protects her, following Kahina's command to lower her safely at the well's edge. From there, Isolde observes Leopold engaging Kahina in a battle of threads and paladin powers, realizing she cannot intervene directly. Meanwhile, Edwin guides Safi through Seafire toward the well, using his Blood Witch powers to sustain her and himself. The two struggle through the flames, combining their magic to protect Safi and maintain movement. Despite intense heat, exhaustion, and injury, they progress forward, relying on their intertwined threads and the almost of survival, inching closer to reaching the well and advancing their mission to save Isolde. In Chapter 54, Safi reaches the airwell of Poznan, leaving the gravely injured Edwin behind, who cannot move under the onslaught of sea fire and his own blood loss. She witnesses the chaos around the well, Leopold battling a powerful fire witch, Oaks burning, and the Raider King dead. The Kar Awen souls urge her to find Isolde and finish the task. When the fire witch attacks, Leopold intercepts the flames, sacrificing himself and confirming Isolde's location in the well before falling into the fire-lit waters. Safi, empowered by the Kar Awen and Edwin's blood witchery, sprints with unmatched speed through Poznan, overcoming magical attacks and pain. A mysterious girl, Skye, guides her, helping her navigate past the cleaved and sea fire toward the well. Despite Kahina's compulsion through a magical ring, Safi recalls her prior bargain and conditions, maintaining control. She dives into the well, reaches Isolde, and completes her quest, uniting with her thread sister, and bringing the mission closer to its resolution. Part 2. Complete. In Chapter 55, Vanessa awakens on the raft of Monroe with Vivia, Xander, and Lev after being unconscious for nearly half a day. Vivia explains that they had been frozen for a week, and the sleeping giant and moon have shifted. Vanessa processes the aftermath of the ice and river ordeal, showing vulnerability as she leans on Vivia, confessing her love for her. Their moment of intimacy is abruptly interrupted as all aboard, Vanessa, Vivia, Xander, and Lev, suddenly struggle to breathe, their threads seemingly cut, as a force reclaims what it considers its own. Far to the east, Habim Fashayed and Matthew experience the same suffocating effect while observing the chaotic battle in Poznan, feeling power being drained. In the Oran Mountains, Caden and Alma also sense severe disturbances. The ground shakes, wildlife flees, and Caden's magic fades. Alma removes Caden's threadstones, realizing that the Moon Mother's restored power has gone awry, putting them and all connected threads at mortal risk. In Chapter 56, Isolde surfaces from the airwell to find sea fire still burning, snow falling, and distant battle sounds, but the world is now filled with threads, weaving across the land, water, and sky. She spots Edwin's corpse, whose death repels the threads, and immediately moves to carry him to the well despite Safi initially failing to help. As they struggle over ice and stone, snow and ash fall, and Edwin's body is exposed through ripped clothing, revealing injuries that must be healed in the well. Isolt's strength is insufficient alone, and the well seems to recede, leaving her momentarily powerless. As they near it, a violent windstorm erupts, slicing through the threads and lifting Isolt from the ground. Safi is separated, witnessing the well, transformed into a grotesque, humanoid exalted one, whose pallid, elongated form and white hair combine with cyclonic winds and lightning. The battle, thought finished, is revealed to be only beginning, leaving both Isolde and Safi in imminent peril. In Chapter 57, Merrick finds Last Holdout completely destroyed by fire and stands amid the ruins, reflecting on his repeated failures and losses. He senses that a paladin has awakened, seeking vengeance over the Witchlands. The creature Etosha emerges from the ashes, a grotesque, elongated figure, and strikes at Merrick with a whip of wind. Without his magic, Merrick relies on residual threads from Cullen, summoning Hoarfrost and creating a wind to defend himself, launching a counterattack. Meanwhile, Vivia, Vanessa, Xander, and Lev awaken on the river Amonra and quickly realize their magic is gone. The river, previously under Vivia's control, becomes violent and chaotic. The raft begins to break apart as the water churns, propelled by unknown power. Despite Vivia's efforts to steer and rescue the group, the river overwhelms them. Vivia loses hold of Vanessa and is pulled under by a formless, slimy creature that grips her waist. The chapter ends with Ryber's diary reflecting on the need to locate Lisbeth and Cora to understand the wells and fix the unfolding catastrophe. In Chapter 58, Nadja, the Ether Paladin, awakens beside the crater of the former Ether Well in the Surmayans, struggling to adjust to his physical body after inhabiting the Blood Witch. He surveys the mountains, trees, and snow, noting their harsh beauty. A figure materializes from the dreaming, the Rook King, offering him a white robe and informing him that all the other paladins are awake. Nadja inquires about Raquel, the Exalted One of Water, but the Rook King remains uncertain of her allegiance. The Rook King instructs Nadja to travel to the Contested Lands, where 12 paladins must now convene for the final battle. Nadja accepts, prepared by his experiences in the Blood Witch's body and aware of the prophecy. The Rook King warns him that he cannot accompany Nadja because the Dark Giver requires his presence, but he will guide Nadja to where the lament is set to conclude. Nadja commits to doing whatever is necessary to aid Surmaya and repair the past. In Chapter 59, Styx arrives in Lovitz to find the city collapsing as magic drains from the land. Stones, people, beasts, and waterways are destabilized, including the water bridges of Stefan Eckert. Recognizing the severity, Styx channels all her power far beyond anything she had previously accessed to stabilize the river and protect the city. She races toward the southern bridge, summoning waves and ice to halt ships from plummeting and prevent widespread death. The River Timmets drains uncontrollably into the valley, threatening tens of thousands. Styx constructs new ice bridges from water in the river, valley, and clouds, maintaining order amidst the chaos. Winds and 9 magical creatures, including a stormhound carrying Cam, assist her by directing currents and reinforcing her bridges. Sea foxes and stormhounds help move ships safely. Styx uses this combined power to evacuate New Brevnans from the bridges, focusing on saving as many lives as possible while the city continues to unravel. In Chapter 60, Safi is consumed by the storm of threads and then cast away, witnessing the well's total destruction and believing the battle lost. Isolde is thrown from the storm into the dreaming, then awakens at a shrine, learning from Leopold that the air well and everything near it has been annihilated and Edwin cannot be restored. Leopold reveals the true history of the Six, the Exalted Ones, the Blade and Glass, the Wells, and the Rook King's long plan to heal the Wells and restore Surmaya, explaining how Portia, Midden, and centuries of betrayal shaped the present. Isolde realizes she has been manipulated as a tool, and that Leopold engineered events to control magic and fate. Rejecting the lament and Leopold's justification, she refuses to serve his plans any longer. As Leopold prepares to leave, Isolde acts directly, seizing his threads and holding on, fueled by anger and resolve. In Chapter 61, Merrick unleashes extraordinary power, soaring above the burned forest and Poznan to confront Etosha, the Exalted One. His winds, amplified by Cullen's magic, allow him to maneuver at impossible speeds, evading Etosha's lightning and attacks while guiding his flight to distract her from the devastated city below. Merrick surveys the destruction. Seafire still burns, the river churns violently, and Poznan lies in ruins. His goal is to lead Etosha away from the city while protecting those who remain vulnerable, including citizens and the remnants of the Kar Awen. During the pursuit, Safi falls toward the river, losing control and endangered by the storm and Etosha's powers. Merrick intercepts her midair, shielding her with his winds and threads, cocooning her as they ascend above the chaos. He deposits Safi safely on charred ground, instructing her to hide while he continues to draw Etosha away, buying time to protect the Witchlands from further devastation. In Chapter 62, Styx continues rescuing survivors in Lovitz, navigating collapsing water bridges and flooding caused by the loss of witchery. She carries herself across ice and tide, saving hundreds of people while processing the destruction around her. Cam arrives with a stormhound sent by sight witches to assist Styx, and together they coordinate the rescue. Styx reunites with her father, Soter, who is injured but insists on directing efforts to the cisterns and skulks, delegating responsibilities appropriately. Styx carries her father to safety, balancing his weight while preparing to lead the rescue efforts. Meanwhile, Vivia is captured by a monstrous creature in the river, unable to fight effectively. Using her patience and wits, she allows herself to be carried by the creature, treating it as she would a predator, remaining alive through strategy rather than magic. Styx and her allies continue working to save as many citizens as possible amidst the chaos. In Chapter 63, Skye navigates the destruction of Poznan, fleeing seafire, collapsing buildings, and chaotic winds while clutching the map Isolde had given her. She struggles to breathe under the suffocating influence of a mysterious force claiming power, but is guided by a white weasel through the smoke and rubble. Along the way, Skye recovers Safi's discarded sword and continues pursuing a path to safety, using her wits and agility. Meanwhile, Merrick moves through the mountain, chased by Etosha. He navigates a narrow, water-filled tunnel using Cullen's guidance and thread-bonded power, entering Paladin's Hall where glowing doors mark a way out. He is propelled into a new, hot landscape as he continues to evade Etosha, relying on Cullen's thread-guided surges of magic. Simultaneously, Isolde holds on to Leopold's threads through the dreaming and back to the Sermayans, resisting his attempts to remove her and asserting her autonomy. She maintains her grip, determined to act for Safi, Edwin, and the greater good, refusing to obey Leopold's commands even as the world's threads decay. In Chapter 64, Safi follows a path through the burnt forest, realizing she is being guided along someone else's tracks, likely Leopold's, as she pursues Etosha and Merrick. She navigates snow, ice, and chaotic threads, passing through a spiraling black stone hole where threads converge, ultimately emerging into the mountain near Paladin's Hall. Etosha follows her, manifesting as a massive, luminescent figure, but Safi continues moving forward, relying on the path laid out for her. Meanwhile, Styx aids her injured father through the temple on Hawk's Way, using her paladin-based magic to slow his bleeding and stabilize him. Inside, she observes healers attending the wounded, as well as frescoes of Lady Bailey and Nodin's right hand, marking the city's living history. Suddenly, she experiences the ancient ring bond connecting her to the Exalted One of Lovitz, who approaches and asserts control over her movements. Despite her pain and weakness, Lovitz lifts Styx and commands her to stand, signaling her continued role in the city's defense and the interplay of bound magic that governs the Witchlands. In Chapter 65, Isolde surveys the devastation of Poznan from above, witnessing burned forests, scorched shorelines, and shattered landscapes. Leopold attempts to overwhelm her with his threads, but she resists, holding him tightly and refusing to release him despite immense pain. He warns that the seas and rivers of the Witchlands will boil and mountains will collapse unless she restores Sermaya and fulfills the lament. Isolde rejects his plan, asserting her own agency, and allows the threads to find their new masters, signaling her refusal to serve Leopold or the Exalted Ones. Meanwhile, Caden and Alma travel west toward a magic access in the Cursed Mountain, navigating chaos and uncanny forces. They arrive at a glowing doorway, entering the mountain's magic despite exhaustion and danger. Isolde continues her pursuit, running through forests and hot winds, recalling Edwin and past lessons, and reaches a point where a mountain bat, Blueberry, binds her to its back, enabling her to fly toward the Exalted One responsible for the escalating storm, preparing for confrontation. In Chapter 66, Skye navigates the ruined city after escaping the sea fire, encountering a massive ice crater filled with veinous ice converging on a snow-covered mound, resembling a corpse. Following the weasel's guidance, She locates the old Hepikos tunnel referenced in the map, dodging the animated ice veins and resisting the weasel's attempts to influence her. Sky obeys the weasel's command to drop the sword, which impales the mound, triggering a resonant reaction from the ice, then flees. Meanwhile, Aeduan relives the trauma of his childhood as he watches the deaths of his mother Disi and the devastation wrought by raiders and fire. His father, Ragnar, appears too late, searching in vain and reliving the same nightmare. Aeduan understands that no one could have prevented the destruction, including the creation of the wells, which harmed the Moon Mother. He reassures his father, letting him go, and resolves to take responsibility for his own survival and power, acknowledging that only he can heal himself and act in the face of the past's consequences. In Chapter 67, Merrick arrives in the Contested Lands, a remote, green region broken by a canyon, guided by Cullen. Etosha, the Exalted One from the Airwell, appears, accompanied by immense storm magic, and addresses Merrick's sister, signaling another paladin's presence. Merrick identifies a second paladin controlling water, dragging a half-drowned familiar figure, his sister, who stabs at the water paladin. Etosha's attacks grow uncontrolled, no longer targeting Merrick but wreaking destruction. Merrick relies on Cullen's magic to navigate and survive. Meanwhile, Isolde faces Etosha directly, experiencing extreme pain as the Exalted One's storms batter her. She realizes she is no longer a Weaver Witch or bound to the void, her power stripped when she healed the well. Without her former abilities, she struggles to withstand Etosha's assault, recognizing that the battle cannot be completed by her alone. Safi arrives in the Contested Lands, observing Isolde fighting atop a mountain bat amid storms. Determined to assist, she resolves to bind the threads to objects she can control, preparing to intervene and support Isolde before the Exalted One's magic overwhelms her. In Chapter 68, Aeduan awakens in Poznan to find a sword pierced through his belly. Despite the pain, he grasps the hilt and pulls it free. Noting the wound quickly crusts over with ice, he begins to understand. The sword is the Truth Witch's blade, its sheath destroyed along with much of the city. Aeduan also discovers a necklace in his pocket, intact despite torn clothing, imbued with a sense of purpose from the Truth Witch. The Moon Mother communicates with him, explaining that the necklace will remind him of who he is and how his experiences have shaped him, and she presents him with a small, starlight-sharp knife to aid in rebuilding the world. Encouraged and guided by the Moon Mother's whisper to run, Aeduan rises, accepting his role and agency. Strengthened by these gifts and the message, he sets off, prepared to face what comes next and begin rebuilding the world on his terms. In Chapter 69, Isolde is carried by Blueberry through storms and threads, attempting to escape the Exalted One, Etosha. Despite being leashed to Isolde, Etosha's power is eventually transferred to Safi, who begins binding the threads to stone. Safi struggles with the complexity of the weave, but succeeds in anchoring Etosha's power, gradually neutralizing the Exalted One. Isolde, weakened and exhausted, supports Safi, ready to intervene if needed. The process diminishes Etosha's control and disperses her magic across the Witchlands. Meanwhile, Aeduan arrives, delivering a necklace and a sword previously crafted by Safi, now imbued with renewed power and purpose. Isolde and Safi use these tools to sever the remaining threads, binding Etosha to the Witchlands and Surmaya. As the last of Etosha's paladin's soul dissipates, ice forms a coffin around her, containing her power. The battle concludes with Aeduan and Isolde reunited, and Safi having successfully completed her part in restraining Etosha. In Chapter 70, Vivia struggles against the raging waters that no longer respond to her, feeling powerless until she senses Merrick beside her. Together, their combined magic and thread bond allow them to push back against the flood, controlling the waters with synchronized steps. The monster in the river, Raquel, falters under their united power. Vanessa arrives, joining them to defend the city, declaring her authority and supporting Vivia. With the three rulers working in unison, Vivia, Merrick, and Vanessa, they repel the flood and defeat the creature. As Raquel flees, the ambient magic stabilizes, and Merrick realizes the wellspring power that had fueled him and Cullen is fading, indicating Cullen himself is gone. Merrick races to the mountain and the ice tomb, frantic. There he finds Cullen weakened and encased in ice, supported by Ryber and other Sight Witches. Cullen transfers his remaining life force, blessing Merrick before dying, leaving him empowered and the threads of the past preserved. In Chapter 71, Styx is completely controlled by Lovitz's Jade Ring. rendering her body limp as he carries her through New Brevna. She recalls the bargains the Six made centuries ago and recognizes that Lovitz is using the city and its people to demonstrate his power. Despite the pain and helplessness, Styx notices the sea foxes in the cisterns and begins to consider using her knowledge and training to resist. Arriving at Judgment Square beneath a massive, rejuvenated oak, Styx witnesses Lovitz interacting with the people as he positions her for his purposes. As hundreds of six-fingered and regular feral cats gather in the tree, Styx seizes the moment. Summoning her water witchery, she attacks, enduring fire and chains, and focuses on the jade ring controlling her. Using her skill and strength, she rips the ring from Lovitz's middle finger, regaining her powers. Water floods over him, a torrent of reclaimed magic, but Lovitz escapes into the steam and fog, leaving Styx free. The Weasel. The Weasel navigates the cold, barren sleeping lands toward a stone doorway in a glacier. Leopold von Kartora follows, angry and frustrated that the lament has not been fulfilled. The Weasel observes the arrival of three ancient sight witches, Cora, Lisbeth, and Ryber, who step from the ice, unharmed and in control, to confront Leopold. The Dreaming is powerless here, stripping him of magical advantage. The Sight Witches explain that the lament was never meant to be interpreted as he believed, revealing the events he saw fulfilled were coincidental. Leopold attempts a final trick, using the broken blade of Eurydice on himself, inflicting mortal wounds. The Sight Witches, particularly Owl, offer him comfort, acknowledging his intentions but correcting his misunderstanding of purpose versus love. Leopold dies, his threads and magic reclaimed by the goddess. With Leopold gone, the Weasel is lifted by Lisbeth and placed safely, signaling the awakening of the Sight Witches and the restoration of balance and a new spring for the world. Part 3. Witchlight. In Chapter 73, Aeduan visits the Shrine of the Fallen at Carawin Monastery, reflecting on the losses from the battle for the Kar Awin, including monk Evrain Nihar, whose opal Lizel has preserved for him. Aeduan places the opal on the marble slab and honors Evrain's memory, recognizing the stabilizing of magic after the deaths of 5 paladins and the healing of his own wounds, leaving only one scar. Lizel reminds him of the importance of training new apprentices to carry the responsibility of the tools he bears, the Truth Sword and Truth Lens, while preparing them to sense misuse of magic. She has identified 13 promising candidates and plans to personally teach them. Aeduan accepts the guidance, agreeing that new apprentices must learn young, understanding the weight of the tools and his role as Lightbringer. He acknowledges his duty and gratitude to Lizel while noting the survival of the Silver Tailor, linking him back to Isolde and signaling the continuity of his mission and responsibilities. In Chapter 74, Styx returns to Vivien Nehar to explain her absence and the necessity of leaving New Brevna again. They discuss the Truth Summit and Styx's recent actions, including joining forces with the Raider King, which Vivia struggles to understand. Styx apologizes for leaving without warning, and Vivia confronts her about abandoning the city during a time of lost magic and danger. Styx explains that Exalted Ones remain at large, making New Brevna unsafe, and that she must pursue one particularly dangerous Exalted One. She reveals a silver chain containing the 6th finger of Lovitz, whose ring is critical to finding him, affirming that she cannot stay until her mission is complete. Vivia, though initially furious and hurt, reluctantly accepts Styx's choice. After departing Vivia's quarters, Styx meets Kahina, who reassures her that this path, though painful, is necessary for the safety of New Brevna and Marstock. They prepare to continue their work at the Sightwitch Convent. In Chapter 75, Vivien Nehar arrives in Dalmati for the Truce Summit, noting the city largely untouched since the Great Collapse. The Doge greets her, and she observes the restored adders, including Vanessa, who signals readiness to meet privately. Vivia and Vanessa leave the ballroom discreetly, walking through gardens and discussing the state of their empires. Vanessa proposes marriage, and Vivia accepts, solidifying their bond while retaining control over their respective kingdoms. Meanwhile, Merrick Nehar navigates the ballroom, encountering allies and seeking translators to communicate with the Northmen and Kartoran advisors. He then finds Sophia von Hastral, who has been searching for him. She explains her plans for the Kar Awin to oversee magic responsibly across the Witchlands, beginning with Poznan. Marek and Safi prepare to dance in the ballroom, demonstrating unity and signaling their shared authority. The chapter ends with them beginning the dance, a symbolic act visible to all the Witchlands, marking reconciliation, alliance, and the continuation of governance after the collapse. In Chapter 76, Sophia von Hustral reunites with Isolde on a rooftop in Veneza City, sharing a quiet moment of coffee while reflecting on past events and the losses of the Paladins, including the missing 6th Paladin. They toast to Avrain, Xander, Cullen, and other fallen allies, honoring their sacrifices. Safi and Isolde discuss their next steps in ensuring magic is responsibly stewarded across the Witchlands, with their immediate destination set as Poznan to address imbalanced magic. Amid their conversation, playful banter and affection reveal the deep bond between the Thread Sisters. They prepare to move through the city, shedding ceremonial attire for agility. Safi leads Isolde across rooftops, enjoying freedom and camaraderie as they navigate the city under the night sky. Their actions establish them as independent, capable, and united, ready to continue their mission while maintaining their sisterly bond. The chapter concludes with the pair sprinting across the rooftops, symbolizing both their readiness and enduring partnership. The Witches of Shadow and Light, 2 sisters, bound by threads rather than blood, seek freedom from their magic and their respective burdens. One desires liberation from her magical abilities and title, the other from her magic and heritage. They journey across the Witchlands, following animals and navigating diverse landscapes, mountains, tides, storms, snow, and dark caverns, encountering rulers, ruffians, witches, and ordinary folk. Through their travels, both together and apart, they learn the extent of the Moon Mother's world and the limits of their own power. Ultimately, they discover the true freedom, strength, and purpose do not come from escape or external validation, but from understanding themselves and the bonds that truly matter. The sisters realized that what they truly needed was each other. United and accompanied by a small companion, they continue to pursue adventures, embracing their chosen paths and the power and freedom that come from self-awareness and the enduring bond of their Thread family.